He was the richest singer in the world. In 1991, he was worth $230 million. That's $515 million in 2023. When he bought the ATV catalog, not only did he own many Beatles songs, but he also got the rights to other popular songs. Still, he was worth more dead than alive. Whoever got their hands on his estate would get billions of dollars. But most importantly, they would shut him up once and for all. Because Michael was dangerous. He knew too much. And he wasn't going to stay silent.
It's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice.
Michael did have a list of people in the music industry that were conspiring against him. On that list were people that all happened to be Jewish. Record executive Tommy Mottola, his former manager Dieter Weisner, and Rabbi Shmuley Bodiak. He said they were all evil people, every single one of them. A lot of his fans believe these people have sold their souls to the devil and will do whatever it takes to control people and get exactly what they want. Michael, on the other hand, was a very wise and brave soul. He sacrificed his own life so that we can learn the truth. He left us many hints in his speeches. In one of them, he tells us how we are blinded by the things around us, especially the media. How the system is designed to manipulate us with every post and every story. But when we see behind the curtain, we can see the true reality. He said that the same people who manipulate the news are the ones who manipulate our history textbooks. It is all a lie. Every type of popular music from hip hop to jazz is formed by black artists. But the system doesn't want black people to succeed. He was begging people to wake up.
I'm tired. I'm really tired of the manipulation.
He said everything that happened, from him being labeled a homosexual to a child molester, all happened because there were conspiracies in the power structure. Every chance he got, he tried to expose the music industry for what it truly was. With the song Black or White, he also demonstrated his rebellion against the system. He was not afraid of anything. In every single one of his works, there is 0% drugs, 0% nudity, 0% twerking, but 100% masterpiece. Overnight, the media tried to bury him with false accusations. They tried to make him a clown and a laughingstock. They tried so hard to destroy a good man, but it backfired on them. Michael outsmarted the entire music industry, so he became a moving target. Those he trusted turned on him. They started spreading lies that he was hurting children, also they could destroy his legacy. The court cases against him were riddled with lies and contradictions, much like the Neverland documentary was used against him. For example, James Safechuck, a former friend of MJ, said that Jackson sexually abused him for more than 4 years, and it all started when he was just 10 years old, more precisely from 1988 until 1992. In the documentary, James said he was molested at the Neverland train station. It allegedly happened in a room at the Stars Ranch in California, but the train station wasn't even constructed then. A professional aerial picture proves that the building didn't exist in August 1993. When the allegations first came to the surface, the FBI came looking for Michael, searched his premises, and found nothing. But his enemies weren't done yet, and he knew it. Before he died, he told people that he was terrified that his enemies were going to kill him.
Premeditated, that they had planned to do, and they planned to take my brother out, and my brother knew it.
According to LaToya, Michael kept notes of the people he hated, and mind you, these are some of the biggest elites in the industry. He didn't want to fly with them or spend time with them, and was expressing on and on how he felt about these people. Then this new will comes out that Michael allegedly signed right before his death. He assigned it to the very people that he said were out to get him. The same people that he truly hated and wanted to take things from him. Michael died on June 25th, 2009. So the reason why this will was probably fake was because it was signed on July 7th, 2002 in Los Angeles by 3 witnesses. But his siblings said that the singer was in New York that day. There was a video to prove it. Other people have also confirmed that Michael was in the Big Apple that day. But apparently under California law, this is not enough to render a will invalid, since there is a slight chance that the document was misdated. So if you write a wrong date by accident on that document, it doesn't matter. It is still valid because there is no date requirement. So what ended up happening was that John Branca became the co-executor of Jackson's estate, and most importantly, together with John McClane, was put in charge of the 50% shares Jackson had of Sony ATV, which was worth $750 million. Yes, he was taking on Sony. Now, back in 2003, Jackson fired Branca because he was siphoning money out of his accounts through Tommy Mottola. The money they took ended up in offshore accounts in the Caribbean. 3 years later, Jackson and Branca's relationship hit a breaking point. The two two fought over Bronca's 5% stake, which caused a ton of financial problems for Michael. As part of their settlement, Bronca sold his stake back for a lot of money. Fast forward to early 2009, right after Jackson wrapped up the This Is It press conference. Bronca reached out to Randy Phillips and said he wanted to get back on Jackson's team. Michael's manager, Frank DeLeo, helped mediate things. And on June 17, 2009, Bronca was back on the team. Mind you, this was just 8 days before Michael died. So all of a sudden, Michael dies, and suddenly Bronca reveals a will that MJ signed before his death. I don't think people realize how dark the music industry really is. How do we know that Frank made the call? Michael specifically told people that he didn't trust Bronca, and miraculously, he is back on board. This is the speech that most likely put him on the target list. If you listen to it, you can see that he was ready to die for what he believed in. They could kill the messenger, but they could never kill the message. He said that Sony Publishing was killing music.
Because the companies take advantage of them. They really do.
At the height of his career, he generated $7 billion for Sony. But the thing is, Sony underestimated him. They thought that the only thing Michael cared about was dancing and music. Of course he did. He was a performer, but he was also a very intelligent man, someone who wasn't going to let the system control him. So he became a free agent, someone who owed Sony just one more album, one box set with 2 songs that he wrote a long time ago. He left Sony a free agent and owned half of it. Because he left them like that, they were angry with him. He earned them a lot of money, and now that he was supposed to do it on his own, they didn't like that. He was an aggressive businessman, and they despised him for it. He also said that Tommy Mottola was the devil, but since MJ was on the path to freedom, he promised his audience that the best was yet to come. He was dangerous to the industry because he knew how to play both sides. He could be this remarkable, almost godlike artist, and also a philanthropist and a businessman. He had years of experience seeing exploitation all around him. So, to get their revenge, they tried everything to destroy his work and reputation, even rendering him a pedophile who abused minors. Accusations including giving kids alcohol and date rape drugs, having unsupervised sleepovers, which gave him unprecedented access to these children so he could satisfy his sexual urges. Michael Jackson was found not guilty and acquitted on all counts on June 13, 2005. There was no evidence of him doing anything that people accused him of. He never went back to Neverland Ranch and spent the first couple of months after the trial living abroad in Ireland and Bahrain. But this left a huge hole in his heart. If you look at his childhood, you can see everything he has been through. His father abused him constantly. He even told Oprah Winfrey that he was so terrified of his father that every time he was in his presence, it made him vomit. According to his sister LaToya, not only did his father beat Michael, but he also allegedly sexually abused both her and another sister. Based on other rumors, Michael was also a victim of sexual abuse. His psyche was broken from a very young age. He grew up in a loveless home and was raised in a way that he would resent his career. Money didn't bring him happiness. His childhood was taken from him and he was forced to grow up too soon. So deep down, he just really wanted to be a kid again. As an adult, this manifested in him trying to create a life he never had. He wanted to find true happiness. So he made his own private amusement park, Neverland Ranch, and spent a lot of time with children. He wanted to provide them with the childhood he missed. This is why many of his fans were convinced that he wasn't abusing those kids. He actually wanted to be friends with them because in his state of mind, they would be around the same age where he reverted to his childlike mentality. Just look at the way he gets angry when Diane Sawyer asks what he is doing with the children. He is making such strong eye contact. He is definitely telling the truth. Still, he managed to stay so calm and polite in a situation that would absolutely break most people.
36-year-old man sleeping with a 12-year-old boy, or a series of them.
Right. Okay, when you say boys, it's not just boys, and I've never invited just boys to come in my room. Come on, that's ridiculous. And that's a ridiculous question.
The truth is, he knew things, dark things. Many people believe that Michael was in fact comforting the children who were abused by elites in the music industry. Kinda in a sense like he was Peter Pan who was there to help the children who had lost their innocence the same way he did. This is probably why he called it the Neverland Ranch. So the rich and powerful decided to kill him because they knew what was waiting for them down the line. Since he was getting so much power and influence as a free agent, he could speak out against Sony. If he ever made that tour, imagine what else he would say. The answer is, nobody knows except these children. That's what happens with cases of abuse. But it is absolutely true that these children were abused, just that the details of what happened remain vague and inconclusive. Hollywood is rife with sexual abuse, especially among famous child actors. There are many people who've come forward over the years about the abuse. After the trial was over, Aphrodite Jones from the True Crimes series went back to the Santa Maria courthouse to take a closer look at the evidence herself. What she found horrified her. She said that after everything ended, no one cared to solve the case. So she photographed all the evidence and watched the police tapes of the Santa Barbara Police Department over and over again. She looked at the guest book and saw how the police were forcing a statement out of a young boy. They were saying it was okay to tell them what happened because Michael had done it before, so it is okay and he should speak up about it. They fed him lines and the child was just sitting there and had no idea that these people were actually leading the boy almost like a script. The trial was supposed to be a life or death situation for Michael, and even though he came out innocent, he was never the same again. The autopsy revealed that his body was covered in bed sores, which allegedly formed during the months he spent in bed. This is proof that the trial was designed so that Jackson would never make a comeback. Because he died trying, he never mentally recovered from it. It broke his spirit. The timing of his death was very convenient for two reasons. First, he died before he could finish the final This Is It tour. The music industry didn't want MJ to open his mouth again, particularly after exposing Sony and Tommy Mottola. At the exact same time, trouble was brewing in Iran. America was stoked and getting ready to fight. You see, in January 2009, the Obama administration said they were ready for direct negotiations with Iran. But they also warned that if Iran doesn't stop its nuclear activities, the US is going to use a lot more pressure. In the meantime, the president of Iran at the time stated that the US needed to make significant changes to its foreign policy if it wanted to improve relations with Iran. The White House said that they would still use force. Then on February 3rd, Iran announced they launched their first domestically produced satellite, OMID, which means hope. This caused a lot of tension in the West. So officials from the US, China, Germany, France, Britain, and Russia met in Frankfurt to discuss Iran's latest nuclear program. Then in March, Obama reached out to Iran with a video message offering a new beginning in US-Iran relations. In June, Iran had the biggest street protest since the 1979 revolution. Hundreds of thousands of people hit the streets to protest the presidential election that put Ahmadinejad back in the presidential seat. Then Michael Jackson died and all the focus was centered elsewhere. His death also had a lot of controversy surrounding it. Michael's personal doctor, Conrad Murray, was hired to take care of him, but after giving him the propofol that fateful day, he left the room. Propofol is a dangerous drug. Even if the patient has been using it for a long time, the doctor has to keep watch of the patient at all times. Otherwise, things can go wrong very quickly. However, he decided to leave the room because he had to make a phone call. Call who? He said he was calling family and employees. Do you believe that? He talked a long time on the phone, and while he was so busy chit-chatting, Michael stopped breathing. What's even stranger was that when he came back to the room and saw the state Michael was in, Conrad didn't call 911. He said, "No one is allowed to come upstairs except Mr. Jackson." When he was asked why he didn't just call the bodyguard and let them meet the emergency responders at the gate, he said he didn't want to leave a full explanation on the phone and thought that Michael's employee wouldn't return the call. What he did instead was give Michael CPR on the bed. He was a heart surgeon and he didn't know that you shouldn't be doing CPR on a soft surface. It doesn't work like that. If you perform CPR on a sofa or a bed, instead of compressing the chest, you end up bouncing the patient up and down the surface. You need a firm surface so that the compressions are more effective. The force gets directed into the chest and squeezes the heart to help with the blood flow. Michael was pretty much dead when paramedics arrived at the scene. Conrad was crouching next to the bed and in a panicked state asked him, "Does anyone know CPR?" Michael's personal doctor, Conrad Murray, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served a little less than 2 years. Many of his fans, including Jackson's closest family, suspect foul play. Michael had a very close friend, Peter Lopez. Before Michael died, he allegedly wrote his original will and gave it to Lopez. But a couple of days before the official reading, Lopez committed suicide. According to the film producer, Kia Morgan, just a few months after they killed Michael Jackson, they shot his lawyer, Peter Lopez, in the head and murdered him outside his home. Not suicide. Peter called me 2 days before he was shot and was very worried. He had MJ's real will and knew all the secrets. Still a mystery. The lawyer's family said that Lopez was never depressed. He was anxious, but that was normal, considering the type of work he did. He had an excellent career and a lot to live for. He was stressed out in the days leading up to his death, but didn't talk about it with anyone. So it came as a shock when he died with a gunshot wound to the head. If this was really suicide, then there is a very high possibility that Lopez sacrificed himself for the sake of his family. He probably took himself out of the equation because many elites from the industry were most likely threatening his family because of the things he knew and the will he had. This would have given him a solid reason to make that choice. And after everyone who ever threatened the industry was taken out of the picture, the people Michael despised took everything he ever touched. They took his property, his shares, his clothes, anything that was worth any money. His death is particularly strange because there was CCTV at Michael's place all over the house. He had CCTV in every house he lived in. There is constant security footage except leading up to the night before he died. That footage is missing. Coincidence? Very unlikely. It could have been the key to solving the case, but it was taken from the home. The footage would have given a clear timeline of events that led up to Michael's death. According to a source, it was a very sophisticated and high-tech surveillance and security system. Not only were there cameras outside the house, but there were cameras inside as well as in private locations. Instead, it has been erased, lost forever. That's because apparently the LAPD never knew Michael's death would turn into a criminal investigation. TMZ broke the story. The Los Angeles Police Department copied only 4 minutes of footage from the CCTV that was focused on the house that fateful day. The footage clearly shows MJ returning home after rehearsal at about 12:30 a.m. Dr. Conrad Murray's legal team requested that the judge make authorities hand over almost 24 hours of security footage from the time of MJ's passing. But here is what TMZ found. The surveillance tape resets every 24 hours. When the LAPD grabbed the video soon after MJ's death, they weren't yet treating it as a homicide investigation. Their main goal was just to establish a timeline, so they only focused on the footage showing when MJ arrived at his home. We've heard that the police never bothered to check the rest of the surveillance video. That footage could have revealed who came and went on the day MJ passed away. Now, that part of the story is lost to us forever. Sources say the Sony deal keeps Primary Wave's 10% stake in Jackson's publishing assets intact. Over the years, Sony has paid over $2 billion to the Jackson estate in some big deals beyond just distributing royalties for his music. Back in 1991, they spent $100 million to acquire the first half of what became Sony ATV. ATV Music, which Jackson bought in 1985 and included the Beatles' catalog, merged with Sony's publishing to form Sony ATV, with both owning 50%. In 2016, Sony paid $750 million for the rest of the 50% of Sony ATV. In 2018, Sony also paid $287.5 million for the Jackson Estate's share of the group that owned EMI Music Publishing. Plus, during the time they owned those assets, they earned dividends adding up to about $1.6 billion. With the most recent agreement, an additional $600 million or more has been added, making the total amount of money now exceed $2 billion. Sony has been busy buying up companies recently. Last year, it was reported that they were also acquiring a significant minority stake in Remus Entertainment, the Latin label and management company that catapulted Bad Bunny's career. Sources at the time estimated that the whole deal valued Remus at around $300 million. In May 2023, Sony also bought the records catalog from Ron Perry, Barry Weiss, and Matt Pincus. They bought out Pincus and Perry in a deal worth $100 million. Then they made a 50-50 partnership with Weiss, who kept control of the label's newest catalog. In the meantime, MJ's kids have been blocked from getting money from the trust until the estate and IRS settled their dispute, a dispute that has lasted for years. Paris Prince and B.G. Jackson are now in their 20s and are beneficiaries of MJ Trust, while the latest singer's mother, Catherine, who is now 94 years old, is the sole beneficiary of a sub-trust in his will. After a tax audit, the estate has issued a note of deficiency stating that the estate undervalued its assets and had to pay $700 million in taxes and penalties. Based on the report, the estate disagreed with the tax court's findings and won their case in 2021. Since then, they filed a motion basically asking for the music catalog called Mijak to be reassessed. This is still being reviewed, which is why the final value of the estate for tax purposes hasn't been decided yet. Once the estate value is figured out, both the estate and the IRS need to agree on the deduction's value for the final decision. Meanwhile, the lawyers working on behalf of MJ's kids are trying their best to win the case in their favor, but they are stuck in a stalemate with no way out. Not that they don't have any money to support them. It is just that they've been deprived of what actually belongs to them, while their late father's enemies can do whatever they want with the money he earned through hard work. A spokesperson for the estate told Page 6 that the report is completely wrong and misleading. In annual reports provided to the probate court, which are publicly available, anyone can see that the estate provides Michael's mother and children with very substantial amounts of money to support them, the spokesperson said. The estate has a very cooperative relationship with Michael's children, and whenever they need anything, the estate works with them to ensure that they are very well taken care of, just as Michael would have wanted. That brings us to another thing that we should also discuss. What was the world like when Michael Jackson passed? People were devastated by his passing. The music world and people all around the world were mourning that Thursday afternoon. Michael had the biggest fan following of more than 4.8 billion fans. He started out very young and quickly became a worldwide sensation, a global superstar like never seen before. From his humble beginnings in the 70s, he captured the attention of both young and old fans, black and white, male and female, poor and rich. The Jackson mania was a real thing around the 80s. It saw generations of people gluing themselves to the screen every time his music videos would pop up. Years after he released Bad, which actually sold 18 million copies in the first year, the Bad World Tour became the highest grossing concert. MJ ended the decade with more than 110 million records sold. Then in 1991, the Black or White music video saw another mind-blowing success. It debuted to more than 500 million fans across the planet on Fox. He just kept reaching higher and higher after that, never once disappointed his fans. There was just something special about Michael. That star quality within him never ceased to amaze. In 1993, he performed at the halftime Super Bowl. 133 million viewers tuned in to watch him sing. He had a ton of broadcasts after that, an interview with Oprah, which was watched by 90 million viewers, and many global interviews. But the Michael mania never really died. Even after his passing, people are still obsessed with his death. They still want to know what happened, which is why we see so many conspiracy theories and strange evidence that come to the surface. Today, his fandom is still going strong. Those who follow him when he was at his peak still listen to his songs. Maybe the younger generation may not be as hooked on him as the older one is, but it is safe to say that MJ is still a remarkable figure and a true artist in many people's eyes. His fame never really died down, and he is never going to be forgotten. There are just too many people who respect and appreciate everything he created over the years, all the accomplishments he made. Well, this is the most high-profile death in history, and for many fans and Jackson's family, it is a murder mystery. In the eyes of the court, Conrad Murray was the one who killed MJ. He did some strange things when faced with a dying patient. He gave CPR with one arm on a soft surface, then vanished when Michael was taken to the hospital. He looks like a crooked doctor with a personal vendetta, someone who was close and had the potential to change his fate. Murray was a doctor assigned to him by the AEG and was already making a ton of money every single month. But it seems there were a lot of people behind the scenes who made it happen. There are a lot of fertile speculations that MJ's enemies have designed a diabolical plan that would lead to MJ's death. If the doctor really conspired against MJ, then he must have been paid a lot more money to do it, more than he had ever made in monthly salaries. And even though the death of the King of Pop has remained highly controversial and got a lot of media coverage, there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. Worst case scenario, this was a first-degree murder. Best case, it was voluntary manslaughter. The doctor may have really tried to save him, but it was out of his hands. A lot of people say that the doctor did what MJ wanted and paid him to do. MJ had a serious drug problem, which especially got worse after the 1984 Pepsi accident. His hair caught on fire while he was filming a Pepsi commercial because the firework had exploded. The tragedy haunted him, which is why it was difficult for him to manage the urges. Those painkillers he got addicted to were no joke. He couldn't trust anyone and thought that the world was out to get him. This incident happened in the middle of his life, down to the exact day. Michael lived from August 29, 1958 to June 25, 2009. This incident happened at the halfway point of his life. He was already damaged from his childhood and abusive father, and this accident really changed him mentally. Still, his death remains a mystery, well preserved to the very end. No one really knows the actual reason, but it is very easy to see why so many people would see Michael as a threat. That in itself is probably the scariest thing, because when people are greedy, they will go to the ends of the earth to get exactly what they want. They will sell their soul for it, corrupt the world around them, and do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. These so-called enemies had no problem throwing dirt on Michael's name. They planned on how to take his assets and maintain a high status in society even before his death. This is why Jackson's family believes that his death was premeditated. Fans also speculate that the celebrity was intentionally murdered and that the doctor was just a scapegoat. He was put in prison without serving his full sentence because he was backed by people at high places. Whether Michael's death was an accident or intentional murder is something we might never know. But one thing is for sure, he tried to warn us about the music industry. The fact that it was specifically designed to make Black people and artists fail. It was designed to use and abuse everyone who wants to become famous. It is designed to manipulate the masses with media coverage and our history books. And all of this is happening because of the power structure. The elites probably wanted him dead because he had the guts to speak out against Sony and people like Tommy Mottola. He openly expressed how he felt about them and the fact that they were terrible people. And since he held so much power and influence in his hands, he became a serious threat. What do you think happened to Michael Jackson? Do you see some notable repetitions as evidence piles up from different sources and creates massive speculations? What do you think the real scenario is? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.